You're listening to the StudioPTBO podcast, where we talk all things marketing to help you build and grow your business online. Welcome to the latest episode. Welcome to the StudioPTBO podcast. We are back, and Neil, we have another guest. This is super exciting.
We do. One of my favorite people in the world, Rose Terry, is in the house.
Hey guys.
Welcome to the show, Rose.
I'm
Welcome.
so excited.
We're going to talk all things marketing. We missed you
too. So Rose had a baby recently, semi-recently.
Yes.
Named Hudson. Love the name, by the way.
Thank you.
It's an awesome name. How is babyhood? Let's start with that. I told you beforehand that it would change your life for the better.
Yeah.
I have two daughters, Avery and Chloe, and they're my everything. But
That's so cute.
Yeah, I know.
They're just
suck
my
up to
everything.
them. Yeah. Well, they are.
It's true, though.
Yeah. Wait till you have a kid.
Yeah, wait. Wait.
But I said it would change your life for the better, but it's also exhausting. So, like, what has it been like for you overall? Is it?
I absolutely, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It is hands down the hardest job in the whole world. Like, if I thought that I worked hard before.
It's so true.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but yeah, he's so cool, and it's really cool to watch their personalities grow, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool to see online too. Like, you're posting like Instagram stories, and I'm like, oh, that's so cute. Like, it's like my sister just had a kid back in December as well, and like, it's so interesting to see the progression of people growing up online. It's so cool now.
Yeah, and he has his own hashtag too.
Oh, What's that again?
Hashtag Hud the Spud.
Hud the Spud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do
you get that reference?
Yeah.
Bud the Spud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. and so you also have a pug.
Yes, I do have a
named
pug. Penny Lane.
Named Penny Lane.
Yeah.
So how has the pug, Penny Lane, managed to coexist with Hudson? Are they like besties?
Oh, they are the bestest of friends.
Are they really?
Yeah, he throws food to her, and she just loves it. So yeah, it's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So Rose, for those that don't know, Rose is worked at the Innovation Cluster for years.
Mm-hmm.
Exact title is?
Senior Innovation Specialist and the Marketing Manager.
Wow. So you're basically running the Innovation Cluster. And
basically
how I met Rose was probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe further, but you're one of the first people when I started PTBO Can, you kind of reached out to me and because you saw I was into this social media thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, I want to have you speak at an event. I forget what it was, but I really got into that ecosystem there with you, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It really helped introduce me to the whole entrepreneurial community in Peterborough, which was sort of foreign to me in Toronto when I worked in media, because I just, worked in media and I wasn't part of that scene and didn't know it existed. But so I appreciate you bringing me into that. And what has that role meant to you, like working with all these amazing startups, as we're in this sort of real fascinating era right now in Peterborough, right? Coming out of manufacturing and going into startups, entrepreneurship, green tech. What's it like being on the ground floor of that scene?
It is amazing. Like, I feel like I say this all the time, but I think I have the best job in the world. I get to talk to people like you, right? Which is really cool, and have you guys come in and share your knowledge. But then I get to see people literally starting from, their infancy when they have an idea, and watch them grow into these amazing individuals with these very cool, successful businesses. So it's the coolest job in the world. It's no day is ever the same.
Right.
Which I love.
It's been really cool because I've watched your progression over the last couple of years, and I've seen like a lot of the businesses that you have worked with, and I see where they are now, where they may have been when they walked into the cluster, and where they are now is just like they have so much more knowledge about business, about marketing, about just how to operate day to day. I guess it's like what made you decide that, this was the direction you wanted to take? I know you have a marketing background.
Yes.
So what made you decide that you wanted to go and join the innovation cluster? Like, maybe take us through that process of how you got to, we'll go back a little bit. Yeah. And take us through the process of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of an interesting story. So I went to university, and then I was working for a little while, and I realized kind of through working that marketing was where my kind of sweet spot was. So I went back and did my postgrad at Fleming. And while I was there, I ended up entering into the Bears Lair competition with my dad.
Oh, cool.
So he had started at the time, it was called Peter Patch Pedicabs.
Yeah, I remember that well.
Yeah. And I mean, he had started businesses in the past, but his forte was not in that area. So he had asked me to come help him with that. Cool. So we ended up entering. We didn't win, but it was a great experience. We got into the finals, but we didn't win. But that kind of sparked my interest in that. And then, you know, kind of a few years after that, my dad still runs that company, but I kind of took a step back, and I had gone to the Business Excellence Awards with the company that I was working for at the time. And Martin Ewell, who is the CEO of the Innovation Cluster at the time, yes, he got up on stage and he was presenting an award for the Research and Development Award. And I was like, wow, that is such a cool organization. How did I not know that existed before? And I followed them on Facebook. Probably about a week later, they posted a job, and I was like, that is amazing.
That's serendipity.
Cool. So I went.
So were you in school at the time, or were you working full time?
When I was at the Innovation Cluster?
No, like before the Innovation Cluster. You said that you were working somewhere, and then you went to the Innovation Cluster. Like, maybe take me through the timeline of like what happened between like graduating from your marketing degree, because you went to Trent, correct?
No, I went
Queens.
to Queens.
Yeah.
I actually did my degree in art history and museum management, which
Yeah.
actually is relevant, even though it may not sound like it. And then after that, I did work for a little while. I worked at Boatsmart with Cam Taylor. That was fun.
Cool.
And that kind of helped me to see that I was really good at, you know, sales and marketing and things like that.
Cam's a great dude.
Yeah.
Started that from scratch
Venture
too.
North.
Yeah,
As well.
exactly. Yeah, so everything comes full circle,
Yes.
right? And then I went back to Fleming, did my post-grad.
Fleming,
Yeah. And then, from there I was working a few different places.
Tell us about Fleming and the impact that had on your life. Because for me, I never went there, but I'm a big fan of it. I've been on the marketing committee off and on for years. I go to a lot of events there. It's really practical, hands-on training. And was the marketing program, like, tell us who inspired you there. I think you had some faculty members there that were really, what was his name? The one guy who was at the event I was speaking at that.
Al Mastromartino.
Yes.
He is, I would say, my life mentor. I love Al.
That's cool.
Yeah. So Fleming, I think, is amazing. I think, like any schooling, you get out what you put into it, right?
True.
So I kind of had a strange time at Fleming because I wasn't doing like a 3-year program. I had already been to university, so it was kind of a 1.5-year program there. And I had almost all of my courses with Al, which I loved because he was brilliant. He worked at Leo Burnett with some of, you know, the top executives. He was the president of the Nissan Canada Foundation. Wow. Just an incredible human all around.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was able to learn so much from him. And he ended up helping me to get the internship at the advertising agency in Toronto as well.
Cool.
Following my Fleming program.
What made this mentorship so special to you? Like, you know, what was it? Like, you know, obviously it was marketing. Like, what was it about the relationship that you had with that faculty member that made the, you know, whether it be knowledge, whether it be relationship, like what was it about that time in life, going to that school, you know, being with that, you know, like being in that environment?
I think the cool thing about Al, and I think this is one of the most important things if you are looking for a mentor, is that he kind of, you know, started all of his classes by saying, we're all friends. That's and cool. I'm probably going to poke you in the eye a bit and tell you you're wrong. But at the end of the day, it's because we're friends and I want to help you get to be the best person that you can be. So I really appreciated that about Al. He would always tell me when I was wrong.
It's
and
cool.
when I was bad at things
Yeah.
and challenge me. And then he would give me the tools to be the right way, right? Which is so important, I think.
That's what I tell people when you have a mentor. It's like being positive is great, and empathy and kindness and support and rah, but it's also like we challenge each other, right? Like always as colleagues, and that's the way it should be to make yourself a better person. It can't be always rose-colored glasses,
Totally.
right?
And it can't always be yes man either. Like,
For sure.
you know, it's like, it's okay to disagree with people, but do it in a nice way. Like, you know, it's like, it's okay to think one thing when another person thinks another thing. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's like your truth is your truth, and whatever you think about a certain thing, you know, you might find out 6 months down the road that shit, I was wrong. But, you know, it's like, you just have to stay true to who you are. Like, it was interesting. I was on you know, you're talking about a mentor. I was on a call this week with Cat Howell's Academy. you know, I'm part of like kind of this Facebook ad agency building. And these guys are from New Zealand, and that's kind of he started off, and this guy's really become a mentor of mine. And he starts off this conversation saying like the best salespeople and the best people that run their own agencies are just true to who they are.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, it's like you have to just be true to you, because that's where the actual magic's going to happen. So
absolutely, I 100% agree with that.
So how, when you were you're still doing the innovation cluster stuff, like what is some advice that you're giving to these business owners as they start out that you think is the key advice that you're giving them is getting them to where they want to be in a 6-month, 12-month macro, or even a 3-year macro? Because I've seen a lot of businesses like Chimp Treats like that, you know.
Wow. Yeah. Brooke's crushing it.
Brooke is amazing.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing. And now they're starting to scale. You know, they're doing a lot like Canada wide, and
they're Canada wide. They're moving overseas into Europe.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they're starting to scale. So, you know, maybe we can even use like Brooke as an example of somebody like, you know, when she came into the innovation cluster, like maybe walk us through it doesn't have to be Brooke, just anyone. Like what is the process of that look like?
So it's actually funny because when Brooke came into the innovation cluster, we are still actually in our early days developing kind of how to move people through that. So Brooke didn't get probably what someone would get normally.
Sure. Yeah. You're a startup too, the innovation cluster, right? Like Mike Skinner used to say, like, it takes time to build that too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would say the biggest piece of advice for any startup or any entrepreneur that is getting into it is, first of all, you have to be coachable, especially if you are seeking out the advice of an incubator like what we are. It's so important to be coachable and be able to take that advice. But then also, you know, really understand your business and your target market and where it is you see yourself, and know that it's going to be a long game. It doesn't happen overnight. It will never happen overnight. That is so very rare. Right. That people, you know, go viral, for example. Yeah. That pretty much never happens. So they really have to want to do what they're doing.
And resilience is a big one, right? And Brooke has that. Like, she's tenacious, right?
She's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, it's so funny because obviously with the marketing and the media, everyone sees all the highs, but there's so many lows in the background that happen.
It's a roller coaster.
No idea, you know, like it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And you just have to be like, it's almost like a mindset thing where it's like, when you hit those like valleys, like how do you focus on, you know, how to get out of the valley, you know, into the, like, you know,
you have to think long game too.
Totally.
And
long game.
Sprint.
And you and Nora are sounding boards for me, and almost therapists, like for each other, like to challenge each other, but also provide counsel, say, whoa, it's all right, it's going to be okay. And we have to adjust. But I would say for Innovation Cluster, Chimp Treats is one of the, and I'm glad you raised that. To me, that is one of the biggest success stories to come out of there. And she is now not just a national brand, but you're saying an international brand. So it's Nice Cream that's, or what's the, tell us for people who haven't heard of the brand, where it is now. It's in Loblaws across.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if I could name all of the retailers that she's in, but Chimp Treats is the company name. And then Nice Cream is the product, so the brand that they have. And they currently have 3 different versions of Nice Cream. Okay. And they are going to be coming out with more, but I'm not allowed to say anything about that. But it's the world's only fruit, 100% fruit dessert. So it's
in
like
the whole world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's 100% fruit, so nothing added. And she did so much R&D to get to that point, because if you were to make that at your house, the bananas would be like hard when you take them out of the freezer, right? But the process that she came up with to make it so that it has the consistency of an ice cream is incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And she went to Trent too, right?
She did go to Trent, yeah.
So give us a few other examples of real success stories out of the innovation cluster that have kind of gone big over the last few years. Do you have any that come to mind? I mean, Chimp Treats to me is the most obvious example, but you're closer to it than I am.
There's Entimo Farms.
Okay.
Obviously.
Great guy. We've had him on the podcast.
They're also international. They're doing fantastic. They had a viral thing happen with them. However, they had been working in it for a very long time. I think before that happened, they were probably operational for about 3 years.
What was the viral moment with them, with Entomology?
When they got picked up by President's Choice.
Oh, okay.
Because, I mean, for us in North America, eating insects is very faux pas.
Yeah.
Right? It's not really.
It's kind of a little bit weird, but like you know, people are doing it.
Yeah. Whereas like if you're to go to Asia, that's every
it's
day.
commonplace. Yeah.
Other examples, obviously Noble Gen. They were actually our very first incubated client.
Adam Noble, Andressa.
Yeah. So they're doing very well as well. Oh my gosh, the list goes on. Cody was a client of ours.
Yeah. It's really exciting. Like, it's like, so I want to pivot a bit to like marketing and your passion for marketing, because this is my passion too, and always has been passion, like creating content, creating video, advertising, marketing, finding sort of your avatar,
sales copy.
Sales copy. And when did that get instilled in you? Was it like, was it one person, or you already knew when you went to Fleming for marketing, you think you had an inkling that's a career you wanted to go into? But when were you first attracted to this whole idea of marketing? And
I just remember when I was a kid, I lived for watching the ads on TV.
That's so cool.
Like, I just loved it.
You literally wouldn't watch the show and wait for the commercials to come on.
And do you remember those shows when they would have all the, the funny ads or the best ads of the year? I don't know if you remember those on TV, but I lived for that.
Right.
That was everything to me, which is so funny because I didn't end up going in that direction until later on, but that's kind of where it started. And then I really do think Al Mastromartino, who I spoke about before, he was kind of he was big for me because he taught me so many things and kind of untaught me things that I had previously thought about what marketing was and what to do if I wanted to be a marketer, if that makes sense.
What did he unteach you? What was your preconceived notion about, was it how it was made, how content is made for advertising, or
how it was made, that it was easy.
Yeah.
That it's easy, that anyone could do it. Like, I really did at that time believe that you could just go into it. And then I remember taking courses and being like, wow, there's so much more behind the scenes that you don't even think about.
No, I know.
And I think that's a big piece of why it's important for business owners to understand, for example, their target market or the funnels, or how they, move their clients or their customers through that journey, because it really will make a difference, and then they're not wasting their money. I hate to watch businesses waste their money.
Throwing shit at the wall, we call it,
right?
Yeah. You don't have to do that anymore.
We chat about that all the time, like the famous boosting a post. We put an article out the other day where it's just like, I don't blame anyone though. Like, I don't it's not their fault.
We're so close to it.
Yeah. Like, we're like, A, we're so close to it. B, they don't know that, like, C, if it's just Facebook we're talking about, there's other different, you can advertise anywhere, but like, we're just talking about Facebook. Facebook allows you to just simply boost a post.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to remember Facebook is a business, right? So they want to obviously make money off those businesses. Totally. That is their revenue model is based around that.
Yep.
So if you don't understand Facebook and what you should be doing on there, or even if you should be doing stuff on there, that's a problem.
And it's interesting that you say that, because like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, there's about 20 industries that Facebook advertising works in.
Yeah.
And those are proven stats. There's like 20. I can't name it out, but Kat was talking about this the other day in our training. There's about 20 industries that Facebook ads work in, and they can work in other sectors, but there might be a better option.
For sure. And, whenever I'm training clients at the Innovation Cluster, I tell them to make sure that they understand the platforms first and understand, who those platforms' target markets are, who all of their audience is, and then from there choose what the best option is for them. And it may, depending on the product, because we work with a lot of technology-based companies, Noble Gen, for example, like it may not even make sense for them to necessarily be putting advertising dollars into social media.
True.
Right?
Yeah, unless it's B2B on LinkedIn or something like that. But that could be super micro about it.
But it really depends.
Yeah.
And it depends on what your goals are. And that's why at the end of the day, you guys probably know I talk about this all the time. I think integrated marketing strategies are super important. And it's kind of like I relate it to almost, baking a cake. How are you supposed to bake a cake without
all the right
ingredients and the instructions?
Right.
Because you might bake it at 350 even though you're supposed to be baking it at 425.
Totally.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So when you talk about integrated marketing strategy, what does that look like? Because that integrated marketing strategy might be different for every business, but maybe take me through the process of what that looks like for a business. Obviously it might, I'm guessing it might be target market, but what does an integrated marketing strategy look like to you?
Absolutely. So first, it's really understanding where your business is in the marketplace. So understanding where you are, where you fit with your competition, and then what your goals are first and foremost. So this is actually one tool that I love to teach because, and it's another tool from Al Mastromartino.
Cool.
Obviously.
Yep.
He calls it Al's Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin reference.
Yep.
And essentially it is a stairway, and it kind of leads your customers through the journey of getting to brand insistence. So for example, you start down at awareness, which is where most startups will start, right? They're in an awareness phase. And unfortunately that's the most expensive place to advertise is building awareness.
Yeah.
Brand lift part. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to move your way up the steps. So, so for example, they started awareness. They could next be, on inducing a trial, and then from there they have to get to purchase, then repurchase, then maybe brand preference, and then brand insistency. So what are your goals and where are your customers fitting on that stairway, right? Because there are different tactics and different strategies that you want to use based on where they are.
Sell, upsell, yeah.
Absolutely. And data is everything. Yeah. I mean, it's huge, right? You have to know your target market, not just the demographics, so like not just their age, sex, location.
I love how you went right there.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people are like, well, I know my avatar, I know my target audience. They're between the ages of 30 to 55.
Yeah.
No.
It's all about psychographics at the end of the day, and a lot of some businesses do understand that, but they may not be getting their psychographics right, which can be a big problem. Right. So for example, a lot of business owners will think they're their target market, or they may just assume that their target market thinks the way that they do. But that's why, surveys are great. Doing primary research, if you already have customers, can be a big indicator for direction to go later on.
Groups,
So how did Brooke do that? Let's circle back to this case study, if you will, of Chim Cheats.
Yeah.
So how did she identify? At what point did she identify the avatar, which I'm going to assume wrongly, perhaps, that say it's a 40-year-old woman?
Yeah.
And with perhaps a couple of kids, tweens, adolescents. I don't know, but how did she go, this is who I'm going to go after with my Nice Cream brand?
So Brooke is interesting because obviously she kind of has two different, targets that she's going after. She has to get her product into retailers. So, she had to identify first in the very beginning, because she was just starting out. She didn't really have her brand awareness there. She had to start out in little kind of mom and pop shops, natural foods, things like that. So Joanne's Place and Musée, those are kind of the places that she tapped into.
Good data test markets.
And then once she had tested her product and she had developed it and things like that, and she could prove the sales, then she started going to Sobeys and Foodlands and things like that.
She got in Whole Foods or two, right?
Whole Foods.
Yeah, Whole Foods, yeah.
She's amazing. She got there
I remember
before
I saw
she
that
even
article.
had her product ready to go. Yeah. I mean, that's what's incredible about Brooke. She tested it, but then she was also, so driven that she would go straight to that place.
That's what I really liked about her. Like, she was so business development minded really early on, and I watched it happen, and I was like,
completely locked in.
Was locked in.
Completely locked in from the get-go when you meet her. But then how did she identify the consumer then? Like, so what was the target market? I know where she wanted to be retail.
Well, she has multiple targets. And I mean, Brooke is in kind of an interesting place because she was initially her target. That's kind of why she started it. She saw on Pinterest people were making nice cream. Nice cream has been around for a while, by the way.
I know.
People were making it in their
She's
homes.
branded it.
Yeah.
Totally. It's
And
cool.
she was like, why can't I buy this anywhere? She's a vegan, right? And she's an athlete, and she was busy, and why can't I buy this in any stores? So that's why she ended up, deciding to make it. So yes, initially I think that was her target market. I do see, and this is one thing that you guys might notice in her marketing, she is starting to go towards moms as well, because they're very busy. It is a healthy, clean alternative. It's perfect for children and babies on the go.
Totally.
Dogs can eat it. I mean, you can eat it for breakfast.
Right. So she could literally have one funnel ad targeting teenagers or 20-somethings, and another targeting moms, right?
Absolutely.
They
just use it for different reasons, different purposes, right?
Yeah, that's why I think where the psychographics come in more than anything. It's like your marketing towards a mother has to be different than
totally. It's fascinating. Yeah, and it's creating content to that. And circling back to what you said earlier about marketing, and a lot of people, they think it's easier than it is, because when it comes down to when a business person is trying to build a marketing plan by themselves, they say they don't have money, they're paralyzed, right? Because they don't know what a tagline is necessarily. They don't know how to write properly.
Absolutely.
They don't know how to create great content, whether it's photos or video. So it's very overwhelming to them. So
for sure.
You're quite right. Like, it seems a lot easier than it is, because we're around it every day, right? We see advertising all around us. We're like, well, that doesn't look hard to build my own brand. But you really have to find someone who can, if you have the money, to really help you be able to build that, right, on your own. So
and there is so many things that go into it that you wouldn't even necessarily think about, even from even just looking at color psychology.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
100%
there's so
logo, getting
you're
the right
a wordsmith, right? There's copy. If you think about an advertising agency, there's generally, there's 3 different departments. So you've got your copywriting department, and then you've got your art department, and then you have your accounts department. So you have to think about all of those people have specializations, and that's the reason why big companies seek out advertising agencies, is because they know that's what they're best at, right?
Yep, totally. Yeah, it's that, that niching, that advertising niching.
Yeah.
It's like, this person knows a lot about copywriting, and they understand, the interesting thing, and something that, I'm really discovering over the last year and a half is, how different writing for sales copy than writing for a blog is.
we're in a rhythm with that now.
You and I have chatted a lot about that, but I tend to write from a sales perspective versus I don't know, a copy, writing a web copy.
Yeah.
It's so different. And copywriting for me, getting in this industry, understanding that, okay, the way that you sell is going to be different than the way you write for entertainment per se.
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
So different.
Yeah, and we're getting a rhythm with that, where you'll send me the copy, and then I'll edit it, make it a little more colorful, descriptive, and then but it's a matter of
what Neil's actually saying is I send him point notes, and I say,
right, Rob,
this is the avatar. Yeah. This is what I want you to say to them.
But your content is great, but again, it's just bringing it to life, right, off the page, and a lot of people struggle with that. Rose, tell me about your lens on, and we've had not debates on this but you're a digital native, you grew up on social, on mobile, but you're very, it seems like you're very respectful and of the traditional media in many respects. And tell me about that, because I find it hard to not understand why you would, because but the data part, how do you measure radio, print, billboard, traditional TV? How do you measure that? So if you're building a marketing plan.
For sure. So, I mean, and that's why you really have to understand where your business is and kind of who you're targeting and things like that. Obviously, it is very difficult to measure traditional forms, I guess, of media, because if you are doing billboard, for example, or newspaper or radio, unless you're having some sort of call to action with a coupon code or something like that, it is absolutely very difficult to measure. That doesn't mean that it isn't still relevant. There is definitely a time and a place for those types of things, and a lot of the shift we're seeing as well with traditional media is they are starting to bring everything digital as well. I mean,
Totally.
So that's
they have
one
to
thing you
pivot to
think about.
survive too.
For sure, they absolutely
The
do.
interesting thing I'm seeing with a lot of like traditional companies is they are pivoting their content, but they're not necessarily pivoting their ads to the platform.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed that. So like I agree with you in the sense that they are pivoting their content. So when a newspaper company like Toronto Star, for example, will post like an article, you don't see any ads on the article, or you're not really seeing any banner ads, mainly because I'm just reading it on my cell phone. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, and I understand what Neil's saying. So I'm curious to know, that they are pivoting, but I'm not really seeing the advertising pivoting there.
I mean, I do see advertising, but I do think that, and this is why I keep coming back to the integrated marketing plan, because I'm not saying a company should not be digital, because I absolutely think that the majority of businesses, if you're not there, you're way behind. But you have to think about that if, for example, you're doing an awareness campaign and your target market, listens to the radio every single day on their way to work, like why are you not building awareness in that space? Or for example, if your target market, and I'm just thinking about music for some reason because that's where my brain goes, but if your target market is going to Music Fest, why aren't you necessarily advertising there? The thing is that your brand needs to be seamlessly integrated with what they're doing in their lives. So they should be able to see you in multiple different places, right?
Totally.
And because generally a consumer won't necessarily take the first step with your company and until probably about 7 touch points. Right.
Yep.
So
I heard a stat recently that it now takes about 22 touch points. 22 touch points before somebody makes a buying decision.
I'm on maternity leave for
you're on maternity leave.
I'm already
so that was just recently. I heard that probably about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but remember, stats aren't necessarily
93% of stats
are not accurate. I check you on that. Yeah, but you're right about that. It's like a car dealership client of mine. One of the guys there told me he literally, when a car comes in to the shop, the radio comes on, so they pay attention to what the consumer is listening to on the radio. So if 9 out of 10 people are, say, listening to country music or this or that, like, then if they're going to advertise on radio, well, that's where they're going to be, right? So I get what you're saying. It's contextualized to your life, and I'm a big fan of traditional media. It's just that it's not measurable. So if you're looking for, I guess, brand lift and recognition, it's a good place to be. But I don't know that you can capture leads on a 30-second or 15-second radio commercial or not.
And it depends on what your goals are. And that's why it's really important to build a marketing strategy, because your goals will really make a big difference, And as you move your way up that ladder that I was talking about earlier, it's going to change, right? So as your customer gets, closer and closer to the top of the stairway to heaven, then
I like that. I'm going to use the owl thing.
Yeah. Good job, Al.
Yeah.
Then, your tactics and your strategy is going to change. And so, when those things are good in an awareness phase, they're not necessarily going to work when you're moving someone from a brand preference to a brand insistence.
By the way, Stairway to Heaven was the most awkward song if you're at a high school dance and you got stuck with someone you didn't necessarily want to, because it used to be the last song and it would go on for like, it's a 9-minute song, but it would feel like 30 minutes when
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. No, we can't imagine, because we're not as old as Neil.
What? I used to go to snowballs back in my day.
Yeah, but like not back in this day.
What's the most excruciating last song at a high school dance? It was probably, if you don't want to be dancing with that, but it's probably that one. In the Air Tonight was pretty bad too. Phil Collins' song, it was like 8 minutes long.
Probably.
But nowadays it's okay, because most songs are like 2 minutes long. And they have no substance to them, and they're just like, it's over and out. But sorry to digress.
That's the oldest. Like that's like the oldest thing I've heard you say. Like, well, new music, those damn millennials.
Well, I might reference Sinatra here. Yeah, soon. But so where do you see? Okay, so here's my theory when traditional media. I feel like social media is traditional now. So when do you think that's going to pivot? Like the next 5 or 10 years, when what are we going to call traditional media? Are we always going to call it that? Like, I feel like social's become so the norm now, so the place that most people have to be, because again, we always say all attention is on this
define
device.
social media. Like social media for me is just like everything.
Well, it's mobile, it's digital, it's being on the internet.
You know, it's LinkedIn, it's like, you know, Zillow. It's like it's not your standard. Let's advertise on Facebook and Instagram. It's like those are important, but it's like just the internet.
Like social media still feels like it's
the
sort of on its own island, but it shouldn't be. It's like it's the be and end all. So I feel like at some point that terminology needs to switch, and it needs to become needs to be given its weight. Right?
Yeah, I mean, understand. I am by no means saying that social media is.
Oh, I know you're a huge fan.
I'm all over that. I love it.
Yeah. I see your Instagrams.
Yeah.
You're lighting up. And by the way, Rose freelances for us, and kudos to you. You've done a great job. You know, you were literally on our PTBO Canada Instagram from like
I think it was like 1,000.
Yeah, you came on, and we're seeing tremendous growth on Instagram. You run that with Aaron and me, and Cody does a little bit, and Jerry used to, and we're up to I think almost 13,000. Yeah. But it's kudos to you. Like you understand social media and what great content is, what compelling content is, what people want to consume, contextualize the market they're in. But yeah, tell us your lens on social media and what it means to you.
Oh man, I think it's so powerful. And obviously it can be extremely disruptive. I mean, I don't know if you guys have watched this yet, but if you haven't, The Great Hack is a new documentary that's out.
Yeah, it was about what
I haven't seen it.
It's about the
elections.
Yeah, the election.
And how
Cambridge
data
Analytical
was
or something
Cambridge Analytical, and how the data that they had collected legally or illegally on users and how they advertised to them ended up changing the way that like different elections have gone.
It's so funny that like you say that, because I remember like circa like this would have been 3-4 years ago, like there was a tool through Facebook advertising that like I just didn't understand back then, but like there was a tool that, you know, it was Cambridge Analytical. Like, it was just like, you know, you could essentially use their platform. It was integrated with Facebook, and you could essentially gather even more data than Facebook had. So it was interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that as marketers, we have a responsibility to be ethical at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. I think that a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth about marketers, and I think at the end of the day, it's so important that we are ethical about what we do. Yeah.
And consumers need to be hyper aware that if they're on these platforms, then all their information is being gathered and shared and collected, and that they can't be hypocritical about it if all of a sudden marketers are honing in on them because they know exactly their likes and dislikes and interests, right?
It's so cool to watch, and I think this is one thing that you guys might notice as well. It's so cool to watch how social media has changed the interaction with brands, and how it becomes a part of your personality. Like I have certain brands that I really resonate with.
Well, name some. Let's like what on social media do you find that they're great with interacting with their consumer or prospective consumers even?
Okay, well, I mean, Cody and I have sort of chatted about this one before, but Wendy's is like,
I think they just crush on
I don't
Twitter.
Necessarily go to Wendy's that often. My partner is obsessed with Wendy's, like spicy chickens for life. But I appreciate what they did with their marketing, and I think they're one of the most brilliant brands right now to be following.
And Burger King's trying to catch up though.
Yeah,
right?
but
Wendy's
doesn't even touch it.
Doesn't even touch it. Like what Wendy's did with like Wendy's roast.
Yeah,
like they started roasting.
It was like
on Twitter,
but only on one platform too. Like I've read articles that Wendy's is different on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
They're very contextualized.
Very contextualized.
But they understand the demographics of Twitter. Like Twitter is very like it's just very, it has like that little bit of angst to it. Like, you know, where people go to the platform, they kind of vent a little bit more.
I don't think they could do something like that on a Facebook.
I don't either.
Instagram.
It doesn't work the same way. It's nuanced.
Twitter's more of like a back and forth conversation.
But they haven't converted you. They're playing the real long game with you. Right?
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah. And then they dropped a mixtape on Spotify, which is pretty cool. I mean, I think that they are being very innovative and unique. And I think that's definitely something that you have to do to stand out now.
Yep,
right?
Totally.
What other brands can you think of that are just crushing it online? Is there any that you follow?
Wendy's was the biggest one for me because they were the ones that were like kind of like out there. You know, I think Gary Vaynerchuk as a brand himself, I think like he's one of those guys who has like really broken through. You know, like him or hate him, like he's broken the internet. Like you see him everywhere.
Yeah, and he does respond or just like you a comment.
But you have to remember, you like definitely loved him, right? So like for me, I don't see very much of him or know very much of him, so they must be targeting you.
Yeah, they must be.
Yeah. You've changed a little bit with that, but he wants you to kind of graduate from him too, right? Like he says that, and then sort of move on, and you're on to now funnels and Cat Howl, and that's part of growth though of learning marketing too.
Yeah, I think like, you know, like probably like not really, I guess kind of a brand, like, but like Russell Brunson right now is probably like one of my favorite marketers out there right now. Like if we're moving like his ClickFunnels brand, like I like to see small little like brands pop up out of nowhere. Like ClickFunnels kind of like, you know, when it first started, it was nothing. And then I remember seeing Russell Brunson's ads like early on before like ClickFunnels was actually a big thing. And then I saw him kind of arise and like create this tribe. I like to see brands that are, you know, creating tribes.
That's
of people.
a really important strategy actually too for you know, startups and new businesses or people that, you know, don't have a ton of awareness yet, is to think about like how can you really bring those consumers on that journey with you, because people love to be there from the beginning. Like I knew them before they were big.
They want to feel part of the growth strategy. One of my most amusing moments ever with a brand was I was working with Liz and Peggy Shaughnessy a few years ago, and they used to tease me about my white teeth, and I said, I use Crest White Strips. So Liz would like every day like tag me in a post to Crest White Strips. So one of them responded finally and sent me a whole shipment of Crest White Strips, like I think with 2 or 3 months supply. And I'm like,
that's amazing.
So cool. Like you never forget that kind of stuff, right? Like the brand's recognizing I'm a micro influencer in my own way, and it was just a nice thing to do. And I love
and they have you hooked for life now.
Yeah, they do.
Really?
Yeah.
His teeth.
Do I have them in right now? But they do, like brands, and that's what I love about social media and the way you couldn't do a traditional, right? It was just impossible. It was the medium made it impossible that you can respond. The biggest brands in the world, just by hitting just to recognize that you exist and that you mean something to them, right? So
it's definitely personalized the brand for sure. Any brand, it's like, well, it's given them the ability to personalize the brand, to, you know, connect with the consumer one-to-one, where you couldn't do with traditional media, and that's kind of like why I love it.
Yeah, and absolutely, you can do both too, right? Is the thing. Absolutely. At the end of the day, I mean, so for example, a lot of people think that, you know, direct mail is dead, but I got in my mailbox the other day, I got a coupon package for the Night Kitchen. And I follow them on Instagram and all kinds of social media. And I went in and I got pizza with it, right? So, like,
occasionally it works. I do feel like direct mail is throwing shit at the wall overall. I feel like for when I get in the house, we probably recycle immediately 95% of the stuff that comes in.
Maybe they're not doing a very good job of picking their area codes.
Maybe. But is the Night Kitchen instance more an abnormality, or is that think about the macro of the direct mail you get? How much do you keep out of that?
I definitely think that there are businesses that don't do a good job of knowing where their consumers are based, and so they are throwing it at the wall. I think that some of the larger brands have really like honed in on that and understand that it's still a smart form. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spending their marketing dollars on that. I mean, it's not inexpensive to target certain area codes and do that type of mail out.
Super tactical.
And then when you think about, they can track those redemption codes. They have, you know, scanners. They can scan the coupons. So they know it's working. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it.
It's the coupon code stuff that like I think really works, you know,
because you can track it.
You can track it. Like, you know, that makes
That's
more
the data.
sense.
Right.
For
when
sure.
You have to scan the code, at least you can track it on the back end. But if you don't have that, then you're kind of, like you said, throwing shit at the wall.
And by the way, Night Kitchen I don't need that because I order from there all the time.
I know,
Night
me
Kitchen.
too. I'm like
so good. And they built a good brand, and kudos to them. They moved to a bigger place on 100th Street. Yeah, I do too. It's a good vibe. So there's an example of a brand that, you know, they've really built over time. I think it's
Do you remember their first ad or one of their first
ads
I
don't.
on checks? I don't know. You may have been in Toronto at this point. Yeah. See, I'm like Peterborough baby.
Yeah.
Well, not actually, but
what was it? So
so they had a delivery guy come to the door completely naked.
Oh, okay.
And it was awesome. I was like, what? This is hilarious.
So he was like holding the pizza box in front of his...
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
You can look it up.
That's cool. That was clever. I want to talk about audio. Like, what do you see happening with audio in general? The innovation cluster. Do you see more of your clients? I noticed you guys yourself were doing a podcast at Trent Radio.
Yeah.
Are you trying to get more of your clients into that, and you guys yourself to help build your brand?
Yeah, I think if it makes sense for the business's strategy, totally. You know, for us, it made total sense as the innovation cluster because we're trying to, you know, build a culture, and we definitely have that education piece, which is really important. So for entrepreneurs, they are always trying to learn and learn. If they're good entrepreneurs, they're always trying to learn more, right? So it made sense for us to do that. I think audio is huge. I mean,
do you listen to podcasts?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have any favorites? Like,
oh, I love you guys.
Yeah. Aw, this is great.
And then, I mean,
so you listen to our podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's something that interests me.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
you don't
if
have to
it's
listen to
something
all
that
of them,
interests
but you do.
Yeah, I do. And then I've, you know, got some like guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Neil loves The Bachelor. I'm also a big Bachelor fan, so I definitely listen to some of those podcasts.
Okay.
They are.
Well, I did love The Bachelor. That was in my old couples magazine days, which
okay.
it took me a while to remove myself from when I moved back to Peterborough.
Yeah, but you have two young daughters. I'm sure that you hang out and watch it with them sometimes.
No, they don't. They laugh
No?
at me. No,
Okay.
no, they don't watch TV.
Oh, really?
Like my daughters, like they look at the TVs in our house, like they're like it's like a museum to them. It's fascinating.
I stream. I'm not. I don't have cable.
Okay. Yeah. No, they literally, it's so funny. Like they're all only on their computer and their phones, and what they consume is pretty different than what I could. And you're going to notice that when little Hudson grows up, and you'll be
I know. I'm scared.
Yeah. Hudson will have like a microchip where he's just consuming in rapid fire. Yeah. But audio podcasts. So it's coming, right? Like we say, and that's why we're putting out a lot of audio. We know people aren't necessarily going to watch it, but they'll listen wherever on the treadmill or in the car, and you know,
all over the place.
All over the place. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, they have their phones on them all the time. And the lovely thing about podcasts, they don't drain your battery, and you don't have to have your screen on. You can just be like walking around with it, right? So if you're busy and on the go, like, I mean, it's perfect.
Totally.
I wish Al had a podcast. You're a former instructor.
Oh, me too. I should hook him up with you guys, and he can come in and chat with you.
Was it you told me back in the day to listen to Terry O'Reilly? I feel like it might have been. Do you listen Under the Influence?
A little.
Okay, it's one of my. You started listening to it. It's one of my favorite podcasts. It really gives you the backstory and the history behind campaigns and how they started. Like Buckley's, the episode on Buckley's.
But it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and like I said, like, you know, I can't give enough like praise to Russell Brunson and his podcast and Marketing Secrets. Like, it's just like. In the digital space, like, the guy is a friggin' genius. Like, there's no one out there, in my opinion. Like, have you heard of him before, Russell Brunson? Like, there's no one like him. Like, they're just. Like,
you're trying to hack my attention, get me to listen.
I'm really trying to hack your attention and get you to listen.
I'm not there yet, but it's good. Like, we all come from different lenses, and you started listening to Terry O'Reilly because I suggested it.
He's great. So
I'll throw you a bone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
no, it's great.
I guess last question about innovation cluster. So, you know. It was a startup. It's really built into something really big and vibrant and important in Peterborough and in the Venture North building, which again is symbolic of this new era in Peterborough. Like, where do you see it going now, and how big do you think the innovation cluster could it outgrow the Venture North building eventually? Could it expand to other territories? I know there's other similar clusters and other communities that are forming across Canada, but where do you want to take it, Rose Terry, or is it more you're just focused on the startups themselves within the innovation cluster ecosystem?
I think that it really, I mean, when you think about, because we're not the only incubator, right? There are lots of other cities that
You're the
have.
best, though.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. There are lots of other cities that have incubators. I think that because we're starting to see this movement of the gig economy, and people, are definitely turning to building their own businesses, especially because, there may not be jobs and things like that. There is more room for growth for sure. But it really depends on the city and where they're going. The innovation cluster is working on an expansion right now. I don't know if you've heard
No,
about
this
it
is
or
breaking
not.
news. This is like a
Is it
ticker on
breaking?
CNN right
Breaking
now.
news for him. I've heard
I
of
mean,
it.
this has been going on for a while,
Yeah.
but it is just sort of starting to take the
Cool.
initial baby steps, I guess, of an expansion into Lindsay.
Okay,
So
awesome.
we found, and this is kind of another thing that startups need to think about is, you know, we found that in Peterborough, we had all of these entrepreneurs that were coming to us from the Kawarthas, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, what an opportunity. Like, the customers pointed us in that direction, right? It wasn't like we jumped the gun. We were like, this is very cool. And then our clients were like, it's such a pain in the ass for us to drive here, though. And we're like, yeah, I mean, you're a startup. Like, you don't want to be wasting your time driving back and forth. So
totally, you know, it's a 45-minute drive.
For sure. And they were like, if you could do this in that community, that would be amazing. So looked into it, and so it's starting to kind of.
So you're going to play the long game with the innovation cluster?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Cool.
I'm all about the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to finish on, well, I know we're going long here, we'll finish on one but I always recommend to entrepreneurs, beyond networking, is giving back.
Yes.
So I'm noticing you're starting to do a lot more of that. And tell us about 100 Women Peterborough, because I think it's a really powerful organization that's really, again, from a branding standpoint, quickly developed into a real force in philanthropy in Peterborough. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So 100 Women Peterborough. So there is already a 100 Men, by the way. They actually existed before we did. We were inspired by that idea. Actually, 100 Men happened every single night that we would have our eConnect. There would also be a 100 Men going on, and I was like, there's this underground thing happening. That's so cool, but it's all men. And so, you know, we were I think we were actually at the eConnect, and I was like, let's do this with Katya and Alyssa Stewart. And Katya had already been talking to someone named Wendy, and we kind of all sat down, had a meeting, and we're like, we can do this, but we need to get people on board because we only had, you know, so many friends and family who would be interested in something like that. And so this is why I think the power of media is so important, because we issued a press release, and literally
People jumped on.
next day we had 140.
Friggin' amazing.
Yeah, and I love that you're literally pitched by the different organizations for why they should get the money, and they all should. I mean, you'd like to give, but every time you pick one, and they literally, how much does they make? Like 10 or 20,000?
Yeah. So how
meeting?
it works is the members show up with a check, a blank check. Checks are hard to come by these days too, so sometimes it's
Cody's
cash.
never heard of a check.
They show up with a blank check. They sign in. We take the blank checks, and they're given a ballot once they take the check. And the 3 organizations for that evening pitch what they're doing. And it's so cool. I've learned so many different things about nonprofits that I didn't even know what they were doing before. Like, you've heard about them, but you don't totally know what they're up to. And they come and they pitch, and then the women that are there all vote, and they receive at least $10,000 right away. We sign whoever it is that receives the most votes that day, and they take the checks with them that evening.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I hear you're doing a spin-off 100 Pugs.
I mean, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could get 100 pugs together, but.
Oh, and Peterborough and the Kawarthas?
Do you think there's enough pugs around?
Yeah, easily. Yeah. It would definitely go viral. I could make that go viral. Sure you can. Well, this has been great.
Yeah.
I love talking marketing with Rose. She's one of the foremost experts anywhere on marketing and advertising and branding, and you have the same fascination we do toward it. So thank you.
Oh,
thanks for joining us today.
Guys.
And thank you for listening to the Studio PTBO podcast. If you're not in the Studio PTBO Marketing Hacks group, you definitely want to be. There is a ton of business owners that are just looking to grow and scale their business online. So you want to get in that group. The second thing is we have a digital marketing hacks for real estate. So if you're a real estate professional and you're looking to automate your lead generation and you're really trying to attract more leads without having to knock on doors and do all that stuff, we would love to have you inside the group. The link is below. We'll see you soon.